My name is Kwabena Shange. I'm a 23-year-old abstract artist. So I paint primarily abstract and a little bit of portrait. I'm based out of Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm balancing this with studying, so I'm a design student. The paint that I use for most of these paintings is oil paint, and oil is something that I started exploring a little bit recently. It's a step up from acrylic that it takes a lot longer to dry, which to me is very fun to play with because I get more time to really play with the when it's on the canvas. I also just like how bright and saturated the colors are in comparison to other mediums. There's a very chaotic nature to my art. So how I describe it to somebody who's never seen it would be a kind of beautiful mess of colors, lines, just expressive brushstrokes and a lot of color and no specific order or structure to it. The way that my art reflects my personality, I'd say, is the inherent paradox of order and structure that's maybe more present in some of my work than others, as well as just very chaotic streaks. So I do feel like a lot of inner at times. I think that does a lot to me, and sometimes that gets very overwhelming for me to understand, which I think reflects a bit in my work, where some people just are a little bit unsure as to what is going on, and me myself, I'm unsure of what is going on, so I do think that carries over very well. So my relationship with psychedelic substances, my experimentation of mixing that with just my creative practice comes from just sitting and drawing and seeing the things that I'm able to do like in that state. I think whenever I'm creating something, it's about getting myself into like a certain mind state that I'm able to do something. And the results of tripping, for lack of a better word, shocked me so much that I tried to learn from what I was able to do in those states. I was creating things that felt like they were things, felt like they were places, felt like they were spaces. I didn't fully understand myself as an artist, and when I'm putting down my hand and drawing, it feels like it's fully automatic. It feels like it's fully automatic, and it's just the image is being conjured up through me as a medium, which is generally the artistic practice for me. But I felt like I myself was a bit disconnected from it. But I know that's not entirely the case. And a lot of my style and my development of it has been trying to replicate, trying to learn from how I act. A lot of my current creative practice is trying to learn from and trying to replicate what I've created when I'm absolutely not thinking about what it's like when I do that, I am presenting myself with learning material that comes from me, but at the same time can be so very different from what it is that I'm doing while sober. One of my favorite mediums for tripping and creating is pastels and just materials where it feels a bit messy, it feels a little bit more fluid, it feels just a little bit more tactile. And when I'm in these states, it feels like whatever I'm holding is a part of me, and the process just becomes intuitive, but like a child playing. It's not really something I'm trying to do, but it feels very easy. The objective is a little bit of reflection and self-discovery, which is also the topic of most of my art. So, or what I see as the purpose for creativity for myself is to understand and kind of reflect who I am. So it's not always that I am trying to create, it's not always that I'm able to create, but very often, especially after After a trip is when I feel in the most reflective state that I'm able to translate that into something physical. I've never had a bad trip where I am creating something. Usually, if I feel able to create something, I have to be just mentally cool and calm enough to do so. I've had negative trips in general, but it's also different substances which I feel like produce different kinds of work. And Molly in specific, I don't feel is very productive for creative just because what I feel like it creates, while it does reflect how I feel, is not so aesthetically pleasing. I don't make my art to be aesthetically pleasing for other people, but it's very important for it to be somewhat pleasing for me myself and my subjective taste. Very often I make things that I'm just not feeling, and very often I spend a lot of time on things that I end up disregarding, you know? But yeah, it's less so about how other people take it, but I think that I myself know when it's something that I like. And in order to feel happy about it being a representation of myself, it is very important that it is aesthetically pleasing to me. A time when I lost my artistic passion, my passion for creation, would be my first year of varsity when I started studying mechanical engineering over here at GCT. So during this time, I think I had a little bit of burnout from high school and how just taking art as a subject in high school affected my creative practice. Maybe part of me felt like it'd be something that I'd pick up later in life and focus on. And I just needed time and space to, I guess, connect with myself, to grow as an individual, and also to feel out what it is that I wanted to be doing with my art, period. I am definitely not there. I don't even think I'm close. I think it's got a lot more exciting because I've been a little bit more consciously figuring out what it is that I've liked. I've been doing just a lot more experimentation. I'd say I'm still within a phase of seeing what it is that I can do. I'm trying things out, but then I am starting to sort things into what I do like and what I do not like. And I think it's going to be a lifelong journey as far as developing all of that, yeah. So I'm working to unlearn parts of myself that I feel are restricting me a little bit. I think that I have a very analytical nature, which manifests in thinking a little bit too much about everything in general. That causes just general anxiety. And so much of my art is like a rebellion against that. A rebellion against trying to be too structured, trying to be too ordered, and just being able to relax a little bit more. I am very proud of myself for staying truer to my, well, firstly, creating a vision for myself and starting and working on following through with it. Because it's been a lot of changes in my life that I've kind of made in order to better follow what it is that I see as my vision. So I'm very proud of making the big decision as well as all the little steps that I'm still consistently trying to make to get there. Yeah. And seeing the growth. I can see a lot of growth in the past few years. So it's good for me to reflect on that, as well as to envision where that growth might take me in the future. It feels rather cliquey at times. To some extent, it feels like there's a need to cater towards demographics of which I'm not a part of in order to achieve the kind of success that I want. There's so many Black creatives in the city, in the space that I'm able to connect with, that I'm able to learn from and kind of grow with. But then it does become a thing of looking towards the people who are doing regular exhibitions and who are really taking the art thing seriously and those spaces can very often just be segregated, which to me is not something that's new to navigate, but it does get increasingly frustrating as time goes on, where I feel like I need to be presenting a certain version of myself in order to be taken seriously. Why do I paint? Before I paint, I create. And the creation part of it is just very, very natural for me. Specifically, painting is a little bit influenced by what I feel will be better received, if I'm being honest. Because for the longest time, I avoided paint itself. I avoided painting and was almost entirely just using pencils and what would be considered a little bit more informal mediums. But the addition of painting to my kind of repertoire allows for more color. So I can say that I started painting so that I can explore color a little bit more. I like to stay busy and I like to be working on projects. I feel empty when I'm not working on making something physical. So it's very wide, the type of things that I feel like I make. If we're speaking about art, I usually limit it to things like drawing. I do a lot of pencil drawing. I do a lot of fine liner drawing. My transition into painting was actually through oil pastels, which to me was kind of like a midway between the more refined mark making of pencils and pen and the fluidity that paint allows. Oil pastels, fine liners, pencils, acrylic markers, those are all things that I enjoy drawing with. Outside of drawing though, I like to mess around with wood. I've done a little bit of like wood carving, a little bit of just upcycling of wooden objects, furniture, that type of thing. Making functional objects, a little bit more on the craft side of things. I'm not very skilled at it, but it's something I enjoy, and whenever I see a potential use for something, I try and learn how to do it, yeah. So I think for my abstract work that my emotional state as the artist is almost directly the subject matter that I'm really portraying. So I can kind of sense a lot of darkness at times in my work that does appeal to me. And I also think it's a kind of release of just negative energy that I've been carrying. It's not always important for me to be in the best state while creating, because it can be an act of therapy of sorts that helps me get to a better position. I can also tell when an artwork is coming from a place of just mental peace, mental tranquility. It's all good in my eyes. But I do think it can be a very useful tool just to help me reflect on how I'm feeling, as well as to let go of things that I need to let go of. Dealing with creative blocks is like an inevitable challenge. The way that I get through them and get out of them is to literally just force myself to do something. Very often it's lowering my expectations as to what something should be. So it's not necessarily aiming to create work that I'm going to be showing, but it can just be drawing, it can be drawing exercises, it can be looking at things and just trying to replicate them, as well as what I found to be the best thing that got me to consistently create art is automatic drawing, which is like the process of just putting your pen down to the page and creating lines, creating dots, creating whatever it is that you want to do, and releasing the kind of need for it to be something. That's actually how I got into abstract art in general. And automatic drawing helped me release a little bit of rigidity that I feel like I have in general, and rigidity that I had towards my artistic practice, where I felt like I had to be doing certain things. Definitely does not annoy me to hear questions about like what does it mean or what inspired it. I think there's definitely inspiration for everything, but the inspiration is collected from just my everyday life. So it can be a bit difficult to determine what exactly I'm representing in my work. To some extent, it's a reflection of myself and my mind state. To some extent, it's a reflection of my subconscious, so I need a little bit of time to reflect on what is really being shown. And I actually do like to hear from other people what they think and what they feel, because so often I derive meaning from what other people are able to interpret from my work. Yeah. Art is any kind of creative expression, anything. Whenever you feel like it is coming from an authentic, genuine place, regardless of the medium, I think that is art. I think that living itself is a creative act, and whatever decisions you make for yourself are artistic in a certain way. When I complete something that I've set out to do, that brings me just a sense of completion that leads to elevated moods that can carry me through an entire week, if I'm being honest. Sometimes I am running on a high and I know it's just because I've been doing what I want to do. Very often that's my art, it's my creative stuff, but even just fulfilling what I feel is working towards my vision, even when I am just being disciplined, that makes me happy. I'm a bit of an oddball.